From a distance, you may think that the new CBR 300R is just a punched-out CBR 250. But upon closer inspection, you'll be pleasantly surprised to discover that this CBR more closely resembles its bigger brother, the CBR 500R. I mean, sure, the new 300 uses the same chassis as the 250, but notice how the new redesigned bodywork now includes a dual headlight, just like the new CBR 500R. Then, underneath that bodywork, a new crankshaft, connecting rod, and piston have yielded 37 cc's more displacement, pumping up the liquid-cooled, fuel-injected dual overhead cam 4-valve single by 17% in the horsepower department. It also definitely feels stronger in the torque area. But this extremely nimble, light-shifting 6-speed with its optional ABS-assisted 296mm single-disc brake up front doesn't just look a little bigger, it also feels a little more grown up. Pretty amazing when you consider its low seat height and comfortable riding position. But you don't have to take my word for it. Here's what Inside Motorcycles editor Colin Fraser had to say after a day of flogging the little 300 out on a racetrack.
So Colin, this is the first real season for this motorcycle. Honda's chosen to launch it down here at Roebling Road. Essentially, we're looking at the CBR 250, just a little bit bigger all round. Would that be a good description?
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's slightly restyled, slightly bigger engine, has a lot of the good features that made the 250 such a good motorcycle, but it's interesting that what used to be a class that Honda was establishing, first with the 125, then with the 250, now with the new 300, this is now a division, you know. This is not one manufacturer suggesting here's a destination, and it's ironic for me because I grew up riding, the only sport bikes were small displacement sport bikes, and now because of insurance and all that, it's come full circle, and young people are heading towards these bikes because they can afford them.
Yeah. So if we talk about the engine itself, Honda's added a little bit more displacement, a little more stroke, if you will, and as a result, I feel it's got a little more mid-range and just a little more oomph.
What was good with the old engine is better with this one. It's the same characteristics, same performance, just a slightly improved, but enough that you notice. It's not one of those things, well, it's a wash, I can't tell. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention ABS, because it's getting to the point where almost everything has ABS. It's taken a very long time. Obviously, it's a safety thing. It's good for all riders. It's particularly good for new riders. So, one of the strengths of the Honda package is the opportunity for ABS, and for the amount of money it costs now for ABS, absolutely you should get it. And it's interesting, when we raced these in Canada, the ABS bikes were preferred because the brakes are a little stronger.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say the braking is great, the ABS is nice to have, and shifting, it's probably one of the nicest shifting motorcycles out there right now.
Yeah, and it's such an easy bike to shift. You can shift both ways without the clutch, which is quite unusual for a single. But overall, it's what you'd expect from a Honda. It's easy to handle. There's nothing that surprises you. You can pretty much get on it and concentrate on your riding, which of course, you know, when you're riding hard is the goal.
Right. Riding position itself, for me, I find I'm getting a little sort of bent at the knee, a little more than I would like to, but other than that, I find the riding position quite comfortable, and I'm 6 foot tall.
Well, it's the trickiest thing in the world to try and build these group of motorcycles to fit everyone. And obviously it's slightly more inclined to smaller in stature people, but it's not bad. And you look at the way they shape the seat and how the bike is through the flanks here, it makes it a lot easier for a shorter person to deal with. Right. So I think it's a good compromise. And of course in the racetrack you tend to be cramped up anyhow. So it's as far as a bike to ride on the track, it's actually reasonably comfortable. You know, there certainly are a lot of 600 class sport bikes that aren't as comfortable as this 300.
One of my standard questions used to be, what do you think of the fit and finish? And I quite frankly, I've stopped asking that question because all bikes have come up in standard in terms of fit and finish, but for what it is, I think it's a beautifully finished bike.
I think there are certainly bikes that are better than what we're seeing in this class, but if you at all factor in cost and value, they're fantastic, and they're better now than they were a year ago. You know, the competition is only going to get better, and I think we'll see more features. And if I look forward, even with racing, I think eventually there will be a class for these sorts of bikes, you know, lightweight super sport or lightweight sport bike or whatever it's called, because there's so much interest, and of course these bikes are getting to be far more common.
Right. Is there anything about the bike that disappointed you today when you were out on the track?
No, I think it would be nice if it breathed a little better at top RPM, and a big fast track is not the kindest place for a small displacement bike, but compared to the old 250, it's better and you notice the difference. And I think if people have only ridden really big displacement bikes, they'd be shocked how much fun you can have on something like this, particularly if a couple of your friends have them too.
So who are we going to recommend the bike to?
Beginning riders, people who want a small displacement sports bike, I think it might be a second bike for some people. I think it's more able than you might realize if you're only used to a bigger motorcycle.
Yeah.
And it's really good around town. It's going to be super economical, and that is a consideration in terms
Sure.
of mileage. So I think it's a really good time to be looking for a 300 class motorcycle. There's a lot of good bikes out there, and it's going to be really exciting to see where that class goes in the future.
Okay, well, I understand there's still about a half hour left of track time, so we'll let you get back to it. Thank
Thanks,
you,
Dave.
Colin.
Appreciate it.
Nice job.